You explain to me why black kids aren't graduating high school. Explain that one to me.
Do you want to step over here to decide?
Well, I'm happy to do it right here if you'd like. I mean, I don't think this needs to be.
Get ready for another round of Ben Shapiro moments that went viral. In this second volume, we'll dive into his takes on culture, politics, and the battle against woke ideas.
It was just money after all. It's just like a hooker, I assume. So are you the problem? How did this work?
Whether you love him, hate him, or just can't stop watching him destroy arguments, these clips will leave you thinking or Googling his references. Let's dive in.
Explain to me why black kids are shooting each other in rates significantly high.
Before we continue, hit that subscribe button if you enjoy this content. Your support helps us make more videos like this. Now, back to the action, starting with a classic, Ben's take on Boy Scouts.
Are going to dictate to me that I'm supposed to pretend that men are women and women are men.
In a heated debate, Ben questioned the logic of redefining what it means to be a boy in the Boy Scouts. It's in the name, Boy Scouts, he argued.
Okay, but you're still saying these kids should, not be accepted because they don't really fit in either place? They can't just,
I'm saying that the Boy Scouts have a standard. You must be a biological boy to be a Boy Scout. You have to be a boy to be a Boy Scout.
When someone suggested kids should identify however they feel, Ben fired back. Why not identify as 60 years old?
I will ask you how old you are, okay? Because you're young enough that it's probably not insulting to ask you. So,
I'm 22, so I'm probably young and naive, right?
No, why aren't you 60? Why aren't you 60?
Because it...
And why can't you identify as 60? What is the problem with you identifying as 60?
It's not the same as gender. You can't just...
You're right. Age is significantly less important than gender.
The room froze. Ben's point: gender is as fixed as age. Sure, age might matter less day to day, but redefining it is just as absurd as ignoring biology. His argument wasn't about being rude, it was about tough questions. If words like man and woman can mean anything, do they mean nothing?
I'm pretty good. How you doing today?
Yeah, doing okay.
A little chilly, but it's November, right?
Seems like a lot of security for no protesters.
I might get
Let him speak.
How are you, sir?
Free country.
Sure.
Step over here for a minute.
Oh. How are you?
I'm the head of public safety.
Nice to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you. You know that you weren't registered, whatever, for the group didn't register you for the event. They have strict things, so you're not allowed.
Now for some drama. Back during his campus tour days, a college banned Ben from stepping on its property. Yes, DePaul University hired 30 security guards and even sheriffs to keep him off campus.
I mean, YF did inform you that I was coming as a speaker, as a person sitting in the audience, as well as a member of Christina Hoff Sommers' team. So I'm not sure whether their standards are necessary. I'm also wondering exactly why it's so necessary to keep me personally out.
We're just following protocol, sir.
Well, why is your protocol to keep me specifically out?
Do you want to step over here to decide?
Well, I'm happy to do it right here if you'd like. I mean, I don't think this needs to be private.
The bottom line is it's a private property.
So am I to understand that if I take 3 steps forward, you'll attempt to have me arrested?
If you create a problem and you will not, leave the campus, yes.
Ben called out the over-the-top security, pointing out the irony of focusing on him in a city plagued by crime. When told he'd be arrested for stepping onto private property, Ben didn't back down.
You have great security. I'm glad in a city that has some 4,000 shootings to this date, you have 30 members of security just for a 5'9", 165 Jewish guy. This is maybe a mild allocation of resources. Well, okay. Well, if that's the way we're going to do this, then we'll just do the event elsewhere, folks. So follow us.
Instead, he found a nearby theater, led hundreds of students there, and held the event anyway. Classic Shapiro, turning roadblocks into viral wins.
So instead, what we did is we tried to find a local theater that was in walking distance. It was like a tiny little hole-in-the-wall theater that was maybe 4 blocks from here. We walked directly over there. We led sort of a Pied Piper line out the door. Several hundred students. Well, I called her on the phone. I was like, okay, Christina, so here's what we're going to do. So Christina got out and rode over there, and all these students showed up, and we proceeded to do the show with Christina speaking, and I spoke as well, took some questions. It was a really wild event and a very kind of bizarre evening for sure.
Next up, Ben tackled the topic of race and culture. In a debate on income inequality, he argued that culture, not just racism, plays a role.
How can you argue that racism is not a driving factor in income inequality?
Because it has nothing to do with race and everything to do with culture. And when you have a culture that doesn't... And when...
He laid out some hard-hitting stats.
You know what? Explain to me. You explain to me why black kids aren't graduating high school. Explain that one to me. Explain to me why black kids are shooting each other in rates significantly higher than whites are shooting each other. Explain to me why 13% of the population is responsible for 50% of the murder. Explain to me why the number of black kids in prison, not for innocent reasons, not for walking down the street and getting pulled into a prison, is so high. Explain, if it has nothing to do with culture, explain to me why the single motherhood rate in the black community jumped from 20% to 70% in the same course of time that the civil rights movement has made such tremendous strides. Is America more racist now than it was in 1960? And if it is, please explain to me how that...
Ben wasn't saying racism doesn't exist, just that it's not the only factor. But even suggesting personal responsibility set off his opponents.
Understand why people would be warier of police officers, given the fact that many police officers are going to react to disproportionate crime statistics with stereotypes. I understand that. There is this idea out there that every person who is born white is born privileged. And I don't think that that is accurate, just as I don't think that every person who is born black is born into a horrible situation. I think that we're all born individuals, and if we can start seeing each other that way, we'll all be a lot better off.
Let's not forget Ben's epic debate with Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks. It went viral for all the right reasons.
The idea that all of these socialized medicine countries have it so much better than we do, particularly in terms of cancer care, is a joke. We are still number one in terms of 5-year cancer survival rate here in the United States.
Sure, there are different areas where we excel. But Ben, honestly, you're cherry picking there at one particular area that we're good. Overall, we're number 37. That is not a good result.
The standard of care is the entire question when it comes to single-payer healthcare. But the fact is that rationing is mandated as soon as you start having the government run the healthcare system and decide what level of care people get. They don't care about me. They don't know my child's name. They don't know my name. All they know is how much I cost.
They clashed over healthcare and campaign finance reform. Cenk argued for single-payer healthcare and against big money in politics. Ben flipped the script.
An investor, right? When you started TYT, you were given $4 million by Buddy Romer to start TYT. That's great. That's the way business should work, right? But that money it didn't come from a bunch of poor people buying hamburgers. It came from a very, very wealthy guy who gave you money to create a business a lot of people want to patronize.
If money was speech, well, then if you go to a hooker and you say, oh, no, officer, I was just talking to her. Okay, money is not speech.
Again, I ask you, Buddy Romer gave you $4 million to start TYT. What did he expect in return? Should he not have given you money? Was the money not speech?
The crowd went wild when Ben pointed out the irony of criticizing capitalism while benefiting from it. Then, he asked if Cenk's stance was like a hooker being paid for speech.
It was just money, after all. It's just like a hooker, I assume. So are you the out of this one?
It was classic Shapiro, sharp, quick, and unapologetic. He doesn't shy away from tough topics, as seen in his testimony on free speech in Congress. During the session, Ben shared some